Okay, we can see smoke. Background. They have arrived on the fire. What do you guys do?
All right, at this point, on the way in, we established our LCES. So we've covered our safety aspect, and in theory, we've talked to dispatch. We've decided the tactic that we want to do is what we discussed, a simple hose lay. So now we're going to divvy out the task so we can move efficiently. So who wants to fire up the pump?
I can run the pump.
You want to grab the nozzles for the end and the last piece of trunk?
Yep.
I'll start the first trunk off of here. So once he gets a Y on and you can open up the water, you can leave the pump and come join us with something else.
Okay, you want me to bring more trunk?
Yeah,
Okay.
let's do that. All right.
Okay. And the fire is growing. So this class, a normal engine has 3 people on it. So when you arrive on it, each person has a job. One person's in charge. You all work together. Simple hose lay. That's the trunk that they're laying out right now. Connecting it to the engine.
Check my pump lines here. So I've got water coming from the tank into the pump. I know it comes out here. I have it shut off. Once they have a nozzle on the end so they can close it, then I'll fire up the pump and open it up right here.
Now I'm just tagging on more trunk line. These are rolled in donuts, we call them. So roll out another 100 feet. Hook it to the end of what you got going and just keep on extending towards your fire.
And we're doing it this way. Normally, obviously, you can drive to it, but we're pretending that we cannot reach it. Like most of our fires, we would have to park at the bottom and bring the hose up. Say it's at the top of this hill to bring water to it. So this is hypothetical that we are bringing the hose to the fire. Fire's still growing. The pump has been started. Doug is waiting for his orders to start the water.
In these situations, it's important to keep your calm and just be cool and collective. The saying about smooth is fast. What is it?
Yeah.
Slow is smooth, smooth is fast.
Yep, exactly.
It's totally key in this. When you're putting fittings together or having to think about what's the next step, you just want to have a calm, collective attitude while you do it.
So Jess, what did you just throw out? That seems to be smaller hose. What do you call that hose?
About 3/4. We use that neck down. Usually we go from inch to 3/4, but this case we're going to go straight from trunk, which is 1.5 to 3/4. It's just lighter,
Water.
easier to pack.
We got this hooked on, so I gave Doug a universal symbol for send water.
So the water will be coming now. Yeah, it's hooking it up.
You can tell the way this fire is moving is with the wind towards the south. So we've got a natural heel here with less fire activity. I'm going to form an anchor point just by spraying water on it. And then we're going to flank it from each side towards the head last.
So what does an anchor point do?
Establishing your anchor point is as simple as this, and it keeps you safe so that as you progress, you make sure nothing behind you is going to kick up. So you're taking your safety zone with you. Because right now the safest part of the fire is in the middle where all the fuel's already burnt. If you bring that safety zone with you, that means at any point you can just step into the black if something happened.
Okay, Jess, what flank are you taking right now?
I'm taking the left flank, Jake's taking the right. Of course, we're on a hillside. Going up, we'd be the hiker's left, and he'd be the hiker's right. If we're coming down, we'd be skiers right, skiers left.
What would you call this technique? Do we have a saying for it?
For this one here,
Anchor and flanker?
yeah, we're anchor and flank, and we're putting
So
flanker up.
that's the anchor. Now they are flanking the fire. Jake, what are you doing right now?
I reached the end of my 50-foot hose, so Doug brought me another 50-foot chunk.
Shut me off and
I'm just extending this lateral to see if we can catch the end of this.
Yeah, it looks like the fire activity's picking up. If this was up on the hill, up over here, what would it be doing right now? Would it be increased fire activity if it was up on a hill going uphill?
Yes, it would. The slope adds to your fire activity, so the flame length will be higher, the spread would be faster. Doug, could you send me water again?
water.
Thank you. But we'd use the same tactics and strategy if we were on a hill. We start at the bottom and slowly work our way around it to stay safe.
So if this part that you just put out, if that burned out a little bit more, what would you call that part of the fire?
We call that a finger. Any little island that pushes out, we'd call a finger.
So the part you just, what side of the fire are you on?
I'm on the right flank. You see this little flare up behind me? If you've got multiple people, you usually have somebody on your crew following behind you to catch those, just so you can move faster and not have to worry about the fire on your back door flaring up.
Need more.
Oh, thanks, Doug.
What part of the fire did you just reach?
I'd call this the right shoulder. You're transitioning towards the head, but still moving up there. We basically made it all the way up the right flank.
How are things looking on your end, Jess?
Pretty good. Just a little short on those at the moment. We'll be extending here. It's not moving too bad except for underneath the trees. We'll have it out before too long.
Awesome.
So Doug has extended our main trunk line to this point now. We didn't need the lateral back there anymore, so we just bumped it up. I'm ready for water, so I'm going to give him the signal. And we're just going to keep progressing around the side of this. Pinch it off at the head.
Shut mine off.
Sometimes it takes a couple minutes for you to get water because your hoses are empty. All that space that's full of air has to fill up with water. We're moving directly up the line. Try not to pull the hose over anything hot that might burn a hole in it. But I'm putting out the fire as I go so that I got a safety zone right next to me. Here we're pinching off the very last of the spread.
Where are you at on the fire right now?
Just about got it taken care of. We're right at what would be the head. Straight opposite from where we started at our anchor point. Just caught it before it gets into the timber. Save the neighbor's house. Probably
Okay, so after you put the fire out like this, what do you start doing after that on the fire? So you stop the spread, stop the head of the fire.
So there's various things you do to make your fire more secure. Just because you stop the spread, the wind and the embers, especially in August on the dry days, can make them come back to life. So things you do is you build line around it, hand line or dozer line. That's where you dig down the mineral soil on the green side so that there's no fuel for the fire to burn through. Doug's demonstrating now with the Pulaski.
So Doug, when you're digging this fire, do you want to have any of the black dug out? What do you want to do?
No, Olin, you don't want any of the things that could possibly still be carrying an ember or heat to be on this side of your line. So you give yourself a little bit of pad, but you want to go as direct as possible. And then you pull the dirt away so that when the fire burns to the edge here, if there's any flare-ups, you're down to mineral soil, there's no organic matter that could be ignited in this check line.
Awesome.
And the width of your line is dependent on what fuel you're in. If you're in taller brush and timber, you need a wider line than in short grass like this. Rule of thumb is about 1.5 times your fuel height. So after you get line around your fire where you want it to secure it, you go into what people call mop up, which is really the majority of work on fire, and that's just putting out everything still hot on a fire. It's what you do with a campfire before you leave it, is you stir up the ash, you add water, and you do that until it's cool. So you can see Doug's finding smokes, he's finding hot spots, he's turning stuff with a tool, I'm adding water to it to help cool down. And we do that process on a real fire starting towards the outside, because that's the most threatening part of it, and just working your way towards the center. And that's universal on every fire.
Okay.
So one of your best mop-up tools is actually your nose. A lot of times you can smell smoke when you can't see it. So just paying attention, and attention to detail and thoroughness is probably your best friend when you're mopping up, because there's too many times where you just give it a quick glance, it looks safe, and you leave it, but there's still some heat that's down underneath, maybe a tuft of grass or some bunches of roots or something.
Yep. So this obviously is grass, so the mop up is not going to be that difficult. Say this was a lot of dead and down. After you put the fire out and you hot spotted it, you went around, what do you start doing after that?
Once we've done our mop up with everything we can visually see or anything that we think we're hot, you give it a little time, and then you do some gridding and some cold trailing. And that means getting down on your hands and knees and feeling stuff with your hands, taking your gloves off and touching things to see if they're cold. So you can do cold trailing, which is essentially just going around the edge of your fire, making sure the edge of your black has nothing left that's going to reflare. We base things on whether it's hot or not if you can't hold your hand there. So I can see right here there's still something smoking. If I put my hand on that, it's going to make me flinch, and then I know it's not good enough. So you come back until you can do that all the way around the edge of your fire.
Yep.
And then a grid is a more thorough term where you do the same thing, but you do it with several people. You line up on one end of the fire. If Doug and I were doing a grid, we'd both get down and we would touch everything on the ground that's black or might be hot. I'm going to go over to this spot, he's going to come over to the same, and we're going to work our way from one end of the fire all the way to the other.
So a lot of people, they'd ask, well, why would you do that if it's hot, fire and all that stuff? When do you actually start that? Would you want to make sure that you had all the hot spots out? It's when you think the fire is out. And why are you going to do that? Why do you go hands and knees and put your hands in it?
Sometimes there's no other way to tell if something's hot besides touching it. You know, we get everything visibly smoking. You get things that you smell and look for smoke, like Doug said. But then to tell if something's hot, you have to actually touch it with your hand or get close enough to feel if there's heat coming off of it.
What happens if you miss something that's hot that pops back up?
Fires can rekindle. when they moves through, even though it's all black, there's still fuel here that will burn. This, if it dries out and there's a breeze in August, that fuel that just, even though it's all black, will still burn again. So if you leave one little ember behind and you don't come back for a day or two, that ember will spread and you'll have a new fire to deal with. So you want to be really thorough, and you want to come back and check it often, and you want lines around it in case something happens for your backup.
So when you come back and check, so say this is not just grass and it's actually heavy dead down and it's on the side of a hill. When you come back and check, do you just drive by and look at it, see if there's any smokes? What do you do?
You want to do the techniques we just talked about. You want to spend a little time looking at it to see if you see anything. You want to be smelling to see if you smell any smoke. And anything that looks suspicious, like extra white ash that burned hot, or some brown needles towards the side that look like they were pre-dried, you want to get down and feel it. It's a good thing to check the fires in the afternoon after they've had a little sun and a little wind. That'll make more of the hot spots show that you might have missed if you check it first thing in the morning.
Yep.
All kinds of stuff.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you guys. So when you're done checking the fire's out, you have hose still left. What's your process for that?
Well, we pick up all of our hose. There's a few different ways we could do it. We could just drag it all and throw it on the back of the engine. Or we could butterfly hose, which I guess we can show you now.